should have always known that taking up a post as the only cop in Garretson, a pinprick of a deserted town on the edge of nowhere, was going to be different. But knowing ain't the same as believing, and believing sure as hell falls short of living it. Garretson, barely a dot on the dusty Nevada map, survives, wrong word, maybe endures. Because it stubbornly refuses to disappear, despite most sensible advice. It's the kind of place you usually never find unless you repair lost hikers or document ghost towns. My first day, the heat hit like a personal affront, sun glaring down so fierce I squinted even behind sunglasses. The former sheriff, a wrinkled cactus of a man named Hank, handed over the keys to the building that doubled as both the police and fire station. He explained, quick and pragmatic, a few local quirks scribbled on a post-it note. If I hadn't known any better, I'd have thought these were the settings for community center bingo nights, not what they actually were, rules. Subtle at first, the sort of thing you'd shrug off if you didn't stop to chew on them some. Hank shoved his hat further back on his head, eyes fixed on some distant point. Rule 1, he started, his voice a dry rasp. Never answer the payphone at the old Wainwright place. It rings every now and then, sure as clockwork at 3:17 p.m. Pick it up, and you won't like what follows. Bad news, I tried for a joke, but Hank's expression stayed flat. Worse, you start seeing things, people, out of place, out of time. He scratched his chin, turned to glance at the rusted-out relic of a payphone booth visible through the dusty window. Rule 2, he continued, all business. The Millie Thompson Road is off-limits after sunset. Man, beast, or whatever has a way of changing out there. And 3, don't let the McCready house fool you. Lights will flicker on around dusk sometimes. Looks inviting. Nobody's lived there since '84. Don't go investigating unless you're fond of being watched by unseeable eyes. Hank's matter-of-fact tone sent an icy trickle down my spine. 4, if you hear your name whispered from the old mine shaft, ignore it. Those who go looking don't come back the same, or at all. And the last, I asked, pen poised over my notepad like I was noting a reminder to pick up milk, not guidelines for policing a supernatural vortex. Never ever ignore the crows. They gather. Hightail out of wherever you are, especially if it's near the church ruins. They know when things ain't right. Laugh it up, I sure did, brief and brittle. But as the last echo of my chuckle died in that small, stark office with a view of a town swallowed by dust and despair, I felt something shift. A seriousness, a weight to the very air I breathed. Take Rule 3 about the McCready house. My second night, curiosity prickled under my skin like cactus spurs. Around dusk, just as Hank said, there appeared a soft glow from one window, then another. Warm, inviting. The logical part of my mind recited mundane reasons for the lights, a timer, vagrants. But Hank's words echoed back, and my hand stayed far from the door handle of my cruiser. But nothing prepares you for Rule 1, the phone call. I was across the street, chatting to Irma at the diner, when that shrill ring cut through the air, turning heads. The old Wainwright place seemed to leer across at me, wondering what I'd do. It rang again, insolent, demanding. Irma caught my eye, her gaze sharp, slicing through the hum of the diner. "Don't," she murmured, almost drowned out by the whistling of the coffee machine. Temptation clawed at my resolve, but memories of Hank's stern, weathered face held me in place until the ringing stopped. The silence after felt heavier, like before a storm. Truth, I don't know what's coming, but that silence sticks to my ribs, an eerie prelude to something I can't quite see. Yet, tonight, as I sit in my too-quiet office, reviewing those scrawled notes once again, I hear it, a soft scratching, like the hesitant steps of someone not wanting to be heard. From the direction of the locked door leading to the old cell block, long unused. Desperately, I remind myself that a rational explanation must exist. A raccoon, perhaps, or the old pipes playing tricks. But the scratching, irregular, insistent, unsettles me more deeply than any wildlife or water drip could manage. So, I make my way across the cluttered floor, pausing at my barricaded door, and slide the heavy file cabinet just enough to peek out. The long hallway stretches out, dimly lit by the failing light of evening trickling in through dirty windows. The shadows seem thicker than usual and swallow the far end completely, where the door to the cell block stands immutably closed. Or at least it should be. The scratching continues, a soft but determined whisper of sound. It's coming from there, definitely from there. Gingerly, I open my door wider, the ancient hinges groaning in protest and likely announcing my presence. My heart beats wildly, a dissonant rhythm against the sound of my own breathing, too loud in my ears. Step by tentative step, I approach the door to the old cell block, my mind racing with memories of dusty files detailing its sordid past. The violence, the despair, even unexplained deaths before it was closed off. I remind myself that those are just old stories, ink dried on paper decades ago. But the darkness before me isn't just physical. It feels laden with those whispered horrors. My hand trembles as I reach out to the door, undeniably drawn to the whispering scratch behind it. The metal is cold, colder than it should be, and I yank my hand back involuntarily. The scratching stops abruptly, replaced by silence so dense it's almost palpable. Holding my breath, I listen, straining every sense. Moments stretch into eternity, and then, as if no time has passed at all, the silence shatters. A low, mournful howl rises from behind the door, the sound curdled with despair. It washes over me, leaves my skin chilled and my stomach clenched in dread. Heart catching in my throat, I stumble backwards, my earlier resolve to find a reasonable explanation evaporating into the stale air of the hallway. The howl morphs into a cacophony of whispers, disjointed, overlapping, weaving around each other in a tapestry of madness. I can't make out words, but the voices are unmistakably human, or were once. I should run, escape back to my office, bolt the door, and perhaps call for help. Yet, something compels me to stay, the primal part of my brain fascinated by the terror. Sweat beads on my forehead, each drop a cold tick on my skin. I edge closer to the door again, morbid curiosity tightening its grip around my rational mind. My hands reach out almost of their own accord, fumbling for the cold, unwelcoming handle. I pull it toward me, and the door creaks open with a mournful sigh, as though it hasn't moved in years. The cell block is shrouded in darkness, the kind that seems to swallow light whole. Hovering on the threshold, I flick on my flashlight. The beam cuts through the blackness, landing on the far wall where scratches mar the surface, deep, frantic gouging that speaks of desperation. As the light moves, it catches something in the corner. Eyes, reflecting back at me, wide and wild. My breath hitches, and my finger slips off the switch, plunging the corridor back into obscurity. Panic sets in, a visceral thrum through my veins. I stumble back, the door swinging shut with a definitive thud that echoes down the hallway, back towards my office. Darkness envelops me, and as my eyes frantically adjust, the whispers rise again, this time right next to my ear, breathy and urgent. "Don't open it again." I freeze, every muscle tensed, the warning, or is it a plea, etched into my conscious. The light from under the office door seems miles away now, a beacon I should reach for, but my legs won't comply, rooted to the spot by an ancient fear that knows far more than I do about the darkness I've just stirred. The floor creaks, a small, lamenting groan that barely reaches my ears. It is under that noise that something far less innocuous unfurls, a hiss, sliding its venom-laced tentacles around my ankles, drawing tight. My breath catches, sticking to the inside of my throat like an old web, forgotten in a corner. For a moment, All that fills my ears is the excruciating pound of my heart, searching desperately for an escape in my chest. With a blink slowed by the irrational fear congealing in my veins, I will my leg to move. It protests, locks like rusty machinery long abandoned. Then another sound fractures the silence, subtle and mocking, a whisper made of other whispers, tangled and frayed, yet somehow coherent enough to brush against my sanity. Stay. It is gentle, almost caring, and all the more horrifying for it. Trying to force logic through the fog of terror settling in, I shuffle one foot forward, then the other, every movement so slow, so painstakingly deliberate it's a torment in itself. The floor creaks again, this time a symphony of aged wood suffering under my weight, but it's the soft, wet sound trailing my movements that twists the fear already lodged deep within me to new intensity. My imagination, surely. The corridor stretches before me, lined by dusky shadows thrown by the scant moonlight muttering through the grime-smeared windows. Somewhere, a clock ticks relentlessly, punctuating time as if in challenge, each tick a reminder of the creeping dread. I need to reach the light under the office door. Safety, albeit a relative concept in this moment, lies in that illuminated haven. Or so my frayed nerves clamor. But with each step, the air grows colder, denser, wrapping around me like a wet cloth, suffocating and thick. I rub my arms, fighting the goosebumps marching over my skin like an army of ants. 3 more steps, 2, just 1. I halt, my foot hovering above the ground, ready to seal my fate. My eyes fix on the thin rectangle of light under the door. It flickers. Once, twice, as if breathing. As if whatever resides just beyond that threshold is alive, beckoning me, corrupting the very light that filters through. It isn't my mind playing tricks. The door trembles, a writhing jitter that speaks of hesitance, or perhaps eagerness. I can almost hear it, a silent growl from the bowels of whatever sanctuary I presumed awaited. Almost there. Almost safe, I whisper, a mantra to anchor my scattered wits. The door doesn't respond this time, obediently still and somehow more ominous in its newfound silence. Another step and the floor betrays me, screaming underfoot louder than before, a sharp cry that surely reaches whatever waits. The handle of the door convulses then settles. My breath is a runaway train in my chest, thumping wild rhythms of fear and futile hope. My hand extends, so slow, so dreadfully slow, fingertips brushing the cool brass of the knob. It turns before I grasp it fully. The shock sends me stumbling back a step as the door swings open with reluctant creaks, revealing the room bathed in wan light. No comfort waits within. The light does not promise safety. Only more shadows, deeper, hungrier, a myriad of blacks and grays painting a landscape of despair. The air inside moves, a tangible sigh brushing against my face, scented with mildew and something far less identifiable, the copper tang of fear, perhaps, or the decay of long-lost hopes. Shadows dance at the edge of my vision. Forms hinted at but never fully realized squirm in the corners, and I realize with a sinking heart that reaching the light has changed nothing. These encroaching dark figures, they pulse with a life of their own. A soft giggle, unholy and small, echoes from within. Not from the room itself, but somewhere far deeper, from within the walls, maybe even from within me. Frozen, I stand, the threshold a tangible line between the already thin comfort of the hall and the desolate despair of the office. And then I see it, really see it. On the wall across from me, a shadow looms larger, stretches longer than natural laws should allow. Its head tilts, the movement jerky, bird-like, and though no eyes are visible, I feel its gaze, icy and ancient, boring into me. A whimper tears from my throat, an inelegant sound that I barely recognize as human. It gestures, a slow and deliberate beckon with what might be a hand, but looks more like twisted, gnarled branches of a dead tree. Come, it whispers, a sound carried not through air, but through the marrow of my bones. And horrifyingly, despite every screaming instinct, one foot nudges forward across the threshold, into the room. As my foot crosses the unseen line between the hallway and the room, a cold shiver races up my spine, grounding me momentarily in the shrieking silence of the house. The air feels denser here, as if I've just stepped into a pool of icy water, yet there's nothing visible that might justify the unease bubbling beneath my breastbone. With each slow, reluctant step forward, the floorboards beneath me creak in morose complaint, voicing what my choked throat cannot. The room seems to stretch on impossibly, corners shrouded in darkness that not even the weak shafts of moonlight can penetrate. An unpleasant odor mixes with the dusty air, something ancient and rotting, like old clothes left too long in a sealed trunk. My eyes, struggling to adjust, intermittently catch glimpses of shapes that shouldn't be there. Or perhaps my mind cautions they are mere tricks of shadow and light. But then, as if to mock my attempts at rational thought, there it sits distinctly at the edge of my vision, a silhouette, almost humanoid but grotesquely twisted, motionless, and yet seemingly brimming with a life of its own. I stop, heart hammering against my ribcage, fighting the urge to bolt. The fractured part of my mind whispers, insisting this is just a pile of old furniture draped in a forgotten quilt. I almost laugh, the sound strangled in my throat, wondering when I had started negotiating with hallucinations. A beam of moonlight shifts, daring to illuminate just enough of the figure to highlight the unnaturally elongated limbs draped too casually by its sides. It's too much. My breath hitches and I stagger back a step, my eyes clamped shut in a pathetic bid for ignorance. But the darkness behind my eyelids is worse, painted with the things I've just seen, and so they snap open once more, helplessly drawn to where the silhouette sat. It's gone. The room is empty, save for the usual disarray one expects in such a forgotten place. Relief floods in, cold and cautious. Could it just have been my imagination? The thought is a life raft I cling to even as part of me recoils from its implausibility. I rub at my eyes, surely, fatigue is playing its cruel tricks. Yet, as I do, the soft, unmistakable sound of fabric whispering against the floor chills. The very marrow of my bones. It's behind me. Turning isn't a choice, it's reflex, an animal response to danger sensed too close. Yet nothing is there, only the empty hallway from which I came, its familiarity now a grotesque parody. But that sound, it was real. I edge forward, driven by a need to prove myself wrong, to make sense of the nonsensical. Each step is a mounting dread, an escalation of the internal symphony of panic. I stop midway, the floorboards groaning underfoot, and listen. Silence. No, not silence, a breathing, very faint, measured and slow, mirroring my own. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The cadence is hypnotic, drawing me nearer to its source. The house seems to breathe with me, around me, through me. Just ahead, the dark outlines of the stairs leading up, beckoning. And then from above, a soft thud like something dropping to the floor or someone's footstep. Frozen, I stare upwards as another sound joins the symphony, a giggle, light and mocking, chillingly childlike. It echoes down the stairwell, a sound no draft nor creature could mimic. Memories flash unbidden, whispers of children who vanished into this house, their laughter lingering long after they were gone. My pulse thunders in my ears, a drumbeat marching me back to reality, or what passes for it here. The stair seems to await, inviting yet foreboding. Far behind, the main door groans faintly on its hinges, as if catching a breeze from somewhere within the suffocatingly still house. It's an exit, an escape. Yet my foot, traitorous and trembling, rises not backward toward safety, but forward toward the dark maw of the upper floor. What awaits is unknown, obscured by the suffocating drapes of darkness. But going back is unthinkable. What little light remains seems to flicker in agreement. Inhale, exhale, step forward.